The year 2023 was undoubtedly a difficult one for Harry and Meghan. As we reflect back, their troubles seemed to escalate after the release of their Netflix series in December 2022. While the show was met with ridicule and criticism, it did not completely destroy their reputations. The real damage came in January 2023, when Harry's memoir Spare hit bookshelves. The contents put to rest any belief that it would be anything other than a self-indulgent diatribe from a disgruntled prince. Harry's publicity interviews only made things worse, showcasing his lack of self-awareness. Meanwhile, Meghan laid low, separating herself from the backlash facing Harry. She likely realized the brand damage being done and thought it wise to create some distance. Looking back over the past year, it is clear that Harry and Meghan have failed repeatedly in their pursuits. The evidence is too glaring for even them to deny. Each effort they have made to rehabilitate their image or tell their side of the story has backfired. The more they try to justify themselves, the more criticism comes their way. They cannot seem to do anything right when it comes to public perception. Every misstep is amplified, regardless of how they may try to spin it. 2023 was a terrible year for the self-styled Duke and Duchess of hypocrisy. Things seem to be getting progressively worse rather than better. Now, of course, they're not blaming themselves for their failures, they're still blaming the royal family. But I suspect if Harry ever gets around to writing another autobiography for Penguin Random House, he probably will mention that 2023 was an absolute disaster for himself and Meghan. Even though Harry's book, Spare, was the fastest-selling non-fiction work ever, I wouldn't really say it was a resounding success. The interviews he did were ridiculous. As Alexander Larman writes in The Spectator, the interviews alternated between defensive, irritable, and unpleasant. Harry's book, Spare, was the fastest-selling non-fiction work ever, unduly arrogant. But that was just the beginning of the year for Harry and Meghan, and things got a lot worse over the course of the year. In his court case, Harry certainly didn't win. I think he lost more than he won in that one, even though people are calling it a victory. And then he and Meghan were described as the biggest losers in Hollywood by The Hollywood Reporter. And then, of course, there was that video clip of the endeavors of Archewell over the past 12 months that people made an absolute mockery of, because it was such a stupid video. I mean, it was fun. But the video clip came out at the same time the tax documents that Archewell filed came out. We know Archewell lost money. We know Archewell did diddly squat in 2023. But Harry and Meghan are still going to try to make it seem otherwise. So in this article on Meghan and Harry and The Spectator, Larman writes, if one was to be generous, you might feel sorry for Harry and Meghan. A strange emotion granted to bear towards two fabulously wealthy people who lead a life of privilege and luxury that most people could not even begin to conceive. Yet, ever since their quasi-abdication from the royal family in early 2020, an event that would have been the year's most talked about occurrence, had it not been then wholly overshadowed by the pandemic, there is a sense that they are both desperately peddling anything they can in a bid to remain both relevant and a global brand. It is pretty interesting, isn't it, how Harry and Meghan have these big plans, and their big plans never succeed. And sometimes it is because of factors outside of their control, like the pandemic, for example. Harry and Meghan they thought they were going to move to the US and be big hits immediately. But, I mean, even if that were possible, it couldn't have happened because the pandemic hit. And now I think Larman is hitting the nail on the head. They are both desperately peddling anything they can in a bid to remain both relevant and a global brand. And that's exactly why they can't stick with anything. That's why one day we'll hear that Meghan Markle is going to make the next swoop, and she's going to be the next Gwyneth Paltrow. And then we'll hear that she's trying to go back into acting, or she's trying to be a producer, or she's going to be a producer, or she's going to be an influencer, and she's going to make lots of money on Instagram. Or my favorite, Meghan is going to get into politics. The fact is, she's just throwing a bunch of crap at the wall and hoping that something is going to stick. You see, there isn't any work that Meghan is truly passionate about. She just wants more fame and more money. And whatever can help her towards that goal is good enough for her. Larman also writes, famously, the motto of Harry's family is never complain, never explain. He has ignored both parts of that adage and has spent countless times trying to figure out how to do it. And so he's trying to figure out how to do it. And so both complaining and explaining. Now the world has listened, and it has decided that it is thoroughly sick of both him and his wife. Couldn't have put it better myself. I mean, overexposure has been a real problem for both Harry and Meghan this year, especially Harry though, with Spare and the docuseries and all the other crap that we've heard from him. It seems like Harry missed the point that part of the reason people are so interested in the royal family is because of this air of mystique. It's because we don't know a whole lot about who they are privately. We don't know a whole lot about who they are privately. We don't know a whole lot about their private lives, or at least we're not supposed to. That is something that has kept people interested in the royal family for such a long time. So clearly, Harry made a big mistake when he decided to air all the family's dirty laundry. That made people lose interest in him because we learned that, oh, he's just as dysfunctional as the most dysfunctional person in our family. If we want to hear some whiny, entitled man-baby complain about his privileged existence, well, then we'll listen to that cousin in our family who has the same problem. The crazy thing, too, about 2023 for Harry and Meghan is that it seemed like they didn't get anything right. It really did seem like they had some kind of curse the opposite Midas touch. Everything they touched turned to crap. It was really just baffling to watch as an observer. It was almost like it was some kind of big joke, and at the end of the year they were going to say, "Gotcha," but they didn't. We kept asking ourselves, how can two people be so lacking in self-awareness? How can two people be so thick? But clearly they can, and they are. Larmond writes, there have been countless missteps. This suggests that Harry and Meghan are in desperate need either of better advisors or of actually listening to the people who they presumably pay handsomely for their counsel. The much ballyhooed Netflix series in which they spoke their highly selective version of their truth last year was an embarrassing and costly flop, and meant that Harry's actually far better documentary on the Invictus Games this year was all but ignored. Meghan's self-indulgent podcast, the recipient of a $20 million deal with the streaming service Spotify, was described, and he's right. Now, in the beginning, their docuseries Harry and Meghan was hailed as a success because in the beginning it looked like it was. But then people watched the second episode and people quickly figured out what it was all about, and people didn't want to listen anymore because it was so incredibly biased. Harry and Meghan didn't even bother trying to share another perspective. It was all about their truth, all about their experience. And most people saw right through it. Most people saw it as the big steaming pile of BS that it really was. And as for Meghan's podcast series, well, I would say that inert was a really nice way to describe it. I mean, the whole thing, she just talked about herself. She actually had important guests on there, people who would be interesting to listen to, but she didn't let them get a word in edgewise. So no wonder it wasn't successful. No wonder Spotify canceled their project, and that was also the best they could come up with. Couldn't come up with anything that would work, and that was Meghan's big idea that, again, was an absolute flop. According to Larman, the rot had already sat in when they were mercilessly mocked in a February episode of South Park as the dumb prince and his stupid wife. Nothing has happened since to restore their dignity or the reputation that the pair seemed to crave, end quote. And not only that, but then they were lampooned on Family Guy. Chris Rock took a swipe at them too. I mean, comedians have had a great time making fun of Harry and Meghan. And I understand why. The jokes write themselves. The two of them just really are so absurd, so over the top. It's almost hard to believe that they're real. So in 2024, is there really any chance that they're going to be able to turn things around? Well, according to Larman, there are an awful lot of court cases for Harry to deal with, so his expensive lawyers will be busy. Now, he's right about that. But is that going to actually help Harry? Is that going to bring him peace? No, he has started this, and he's going to this war against the media, but he's going to be the loser. He should know this is a war that is not worth fighting. About this war against the media, Larman writes, no doubt he will win most, if not all of them, but every single setback and humiliation that he faces will be gleefully reported by the international press. who he has gone out of his way to set himself against, end quote. And that's the crazy thing about all these lawsuits that Harry has filed. I mean, he really believes he's this dragon slayer. Harry, you're not. And then I did see a lot of people who said, Harry, you're not. Harry, you're not. Harry, you're not. I did see a tweet earlier that apparently Harry has settled with the Mail online. I haven't found out yet if that's true or not. But if he has, then clearly he has given up on his dragon slaying mission, which was a really stupid mission to begin with. And then as for Meghan, yeah, we keep hearing about these projects that she's working on, but we don't believe she's actually working on anything. Again, Meghan has no marketable skills. She has no talent. She has no work ethic. She's not going to be a success, period. If she were going to be a success in Hollywood, it already would have happened when she was much younger. And as a politician, I mean, what a stupid idea. She needs to stop talking about that altogether. And she's already signed with M&E. But so far we haven't heard about any projects. So if they can't help her, I don't believe anybody can. As Larman writes in the Spectator article, they really are their own worst enemies, conducting their very public personal lives with an unappealing level of entitlement and smugness. This has led to them becoming the bête noire of everyone from committed Republicans to the most ardent monarchists, end quote. And so I believe in 2024, we're going to see more of the same from Harry and Meghan. They're going to continue doing anything they can to try to get attention for themselves. They're going to continue with their whining. They're going to continue with their attacks against the royal family. But as fewer and fewer people begin to listen, maybe they will start to figure out a new way to live. Let's just wait and see. Alright guys, and now for the discussion portion of this video. Today we're going to talk about the comments that you all left under the video. Don't believe the hype. Sussex manifesting delusional hopes and dreams for 2024. In this video, we were talking about these predictions that Harry and Meghan will reconcile with the king, and also that they are being inundated with offers from big corporations. Of course, we don't believe a word of it, but let's see what you all thought. First comment comes to us from Kate London. Kate says, I think the best thing Meghan Markle and Harry could do to have a successful year in 2024 at all. They are massively overexposed, and the public is beyond sick of them, even if they were talented and hardworking and likable. If the people are tired of you, everything you do is doomed to fail in the public eye. They remind me of the woman who has a boyfriend who is bored of her, and she just keeps doing stunts to get his attention. Has that ever worked in the history of the world? You have to let him miss you. Same with the public and the Harkles. Let us miss you. Yeah, right. Kate, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the best thing for them to do would be to shut up and lay low, but you know they're not going to do that. They're going to keep on putting themselves out there, thinking that this time it's going to be different. This time we're finally going to love them, but no, we're never going to love them because they are a couple of nasty people. The next comment comes to us from Valerie Meldrum. Valerie says, Harry has made a total and utter mess of his life thanks to Markle, drugs, and a delusional mindset. I just wish he would ditch the witch, come clean on the kids, and come home to intensive and prolonged therapy. I dread what the outcome for him is going to be if he keeps on this path. Valerie, you are making a very good point, and I say this all the time. I think the royal family is worried about Harry, and if they're not, well, they should be. Is Meghan worried about Harry? Well, of course not. She just wants him because of what he can give her, and at this point, it looks like he can't really give her much of anything. I don't believe those two are going to stay together long, and I mean, what is Harry going to look like when she finally dumps him? It's going to be a very scary sight to see indeed. Next up, let's hear what Paula has to say. Paula Weaver says, in my opinion, King Charles is done with Meghan and almost done with Harry. Thank you, Paula. Your comments are always excellent, and I agree with you on this one as well. I mean, at one point in time, I think the door was certainly open for Harry to come back, but at this point, at most, I believe it's crack. I think if Harry does want to return to the family, he's going to have a lot of hard work to do. At this point, the king cannot trust him. I mean, the king can only put up with so much. I understand he is a very patient, kind man, but still, after what Harry said about him, and especially Camilla. I don't believe King Charles is finding it so easy to let bygones be bygones. Alright guys, that's all the time we have for today. As we enter 2024, it will be fascinating to see what the future holds for Harry and Meghan. The year 2023 was certainly turbulent for them, filled with controversies and criticisms. However, I believe there is still hope for positive change and growth. The new year represents an opportunity to reflect, reset, and chart a wise path forward. Rather than harsh judgments, I think compassion and understanding are needed on all sides. No one is perfect or has all the answers. At the end of the day, we are all human. My hope is that 2024 will be a time of healing and reconciliation for Harry and Meghan. That they will find peace, purpose, and connection, and that we can move beyond gossip and speculation to see their humanity. The journey ahead won't be easy, but progress is possible if we approach it with open minds and open hearts. What are your thoughts? I welcome perspectives in the comments. In this new year, I aim to provide thoughtful reflections on the royal family. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share, and consider subscribing for more content. Wishing you a happy and healthy 2024. Let's make it a year of growth, understanding, and positive change. The future starts today.